Hi there folks, welcome back to the IB and Andy Fishing channel. I hope you're doing really well. It's a bit of a weird episode today in that rather than being one day's fishing in a video, this is going to be 3 different days fishing, all sort of rolled into one. And the reason for that is actually it's quite a weird time of year here in the UK, particularly sort of where I am based in the Midlands. Our Grayling season finishes on March the 14th and our trout season started yesterday, March the 18th. But in South Wales and in other parts of the UK, those dates can change actually. And in South Wales, the trout season starts on March the 3rd. March the 3rd, March the 4th, one of those. I'll make sure that's on the screen and get the one right for you. So we have a really weird period where at home, where I live and do most of my fishing, we're not allowed to fish for trout. But we can travel a couple of hours down the road into Wales and it is legally allowed to fish for trout. So that is exactly what IB and I did right at the very start of the trout season down in South Wales. We made our sort of traditional trip down there to fish the Usk for a couple of days. It wasn't just a fishing trip though this time, we did take the dog with us. I've had a really busy end to the Grayling season. IB's been absolutely flat out manic at work. We hadn't really seen much of each other recently, so it was nice to get away for a few days. And day one we actually just hung out. We took the dog for a nice walk along the beach. Hung out in Barry Island actually, of all places, Gavin and Stacey land, but it was really nice and quiet, beautiful weather, beach was gorgeous. We had some lovely ice creams and we retired to a beautiful little farm cottage near the town of Usk and started to make plans for our 2 days of trout fishing early season down on the Usk itself. Now, if I'm being honest, I didn't do my best job of planning this trip as I usually do. It was a little bit more complicated because we were going to have the dog with us, so we needed dog-friendly beats. And actually booking that was a little bit more difficult than maybe I anticipated. And I came into both days, but particularly day one, that morning, not actually knowing where we were going to fish. So I made a few phone calls the night before, got in touch with a few pals who were really helpful. And we actually landed on a really, really nice beat for day one at Glanusk itself. Really, really beautiful place, Glanusk. Really gorgeous piece of river. This not a huge beat, but really pretty. We rocked up at about 10:30. Generally your hatches this time of year are lunchtime hatches, so I'm thinking, 12 till 2, something like that. That's generally how it goes. We leant over that big beautiful bridge at Glanusk and I couldn't believe it. We were both flabbergasted. We could see bugs hatching and we could see fish rising. It wasn't even 11 o'clock in the morning. Really, really unusual. So get everything rigged up as quickly as we can, get ourselves down to the river, let's get amongst those rising fish early doors. Can IB and I start our dry fly seasons literally in the first hour of the first session of the season.
Righty, so it's only just gone 11 o'clock, it's still very early, and IB and I were just having a little sneaky walk along the beat just to sort of familiarise, because it's not one we've fished before, and we found fish rising. We've had an argument about who's going to cover it, and IB won that argument and has told me I've got to cover it, so good opportunity to either mess up the first fish of the season or catch the first trout of the season. Not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous. It's just off this little rock peninsula. I don't think it's just risen. I don't think it's a particularly big fish, but it's the first fish of the season, so it's the most important one. Right, I've got an all-purpose olive on in size 14 because we've seen a few large darks hatch. That's not turned over. That's not the one. Lovely bubble line that just bends around this corner. It's not bad, but it landed hard. On a 14-foot leader, 5x tippet. I've gone heavy because we're using bigger flies. Likely to find some bigger fish in the next couple of days, so I've gone heavy to start with. I can always extend this out if I feel like either it's too much or if I need a little bit more tippet on the end there just to soften these drops. Right, so half a dozen drifts there and didn't move him, so I've just given him a couple of minutes, just went a little bit quiet, and either the same fish or a different fish has just risen, and I'll be honest, it's much closer than I realised. That's pretty good. For the one that just rose, maybe on him rather than above him, but certainly not as far upstream as I thought. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Eat that one. Little bit of drag. Yeah, touch draggy. Touch draggy through there. That's alright. Righty, so a couple of minutes went by. That fish didn't come back. Possibly spooked that one. We could wait him out, but given that we've got so much water still to have a look at above us that we haven't seen, we were literally just discussing moving on, and then one fish has risen once down this inside here. So we thought rather than walk past him, we'll just give him a couple of casts. It's worth a look. I've changed the fly, I've put a quill olive on. I'll be honest with you, I'm not particularly happy with my fly selection on that first fish. With how flat this water is, this was always quill olive done water. As I say, we've only seen this fish rise once, and I've got to cast pretty much straight over his back, so it's not a great shot this, but rather than walk past it, it's worth a look. Okay, right, we know where he is now, so I have been a decent amount short on him. That's a good thing. That means I've not put him under any pressure, we've not dropped a fly on him or anything like that, so I don't mind that. Now we know where he is. IB saying closer in. There is a little bubble line that sweeps right down the edge of the bank there. Let's maybe creep that way slightly. Righty, so I've had probably a dozen drifts over where I think this fish is. Don't think I've moved it. I'm getting slight drag problems, I think, is part of the issue, and I can't really figure out which bubble line this fish is feeding in. It could be that it's drifting in and out of both. I don't think the fly's that far wrong. That quill olive dun will be about right. There's a mixture of large darks and March browns coming down the river already, and it's early. 11 o'clock in the morning's early for both of those, so this augurs well for the rest of the day. Yeah, got my butt kicked here so far.
Yeah, not going to lie, that was tough. I sort of a bit frustrated. I feel like I might have made a little bit of a mess of that first pool. There were fish rising there. I didn't lift them, perhaps changed down to the 6X a little bit too late on that flat water. But when you're throwing big flies like those March browns, and there were plenty of March browns hatching, you sort of want the heavier tippet and stuff to be able to turn them over better. Perhaps in hindsight, that flat water, I might have been better off going to the 6X straight away. But ultimately, I came away from that pool thinking there's two half-decent opportunities there that I haven't taken. No doubt about it though, while I was in that pool, the weather conditions started to change. The cloud dropped in a little bit, the wind got up, it started to go a little bit cold. In truth, all of a sudden, about midday, probably just gone midday, it went to really quite wintry feeling, it was chilly. And it had a huge impact on the bug hatch. All of a sudden, those large dark olives and those March browns just weren't hatching in anywhere near the numbers that we've been seeing previously. And the fish responded in exactly the way you'd think they would. They just stopped rising. Because of that, I did pick up the Euro nymphing rod for a bit. In truth, I really didn't want to. That was not the plan of this trip to do much Euro nymphing. I wasn't feeling particularly motivated to go out and do it. But I did pick up the rod. We didn't even film it properly. Spent 20 minutes Euro nymphing maybe, bumped one off, put one in the net, and I'll be perfectly honest, I landed that fish and pretty much turned around to IB and went, no, that'll do, no more Euro nymphing. Let's just walk up and down this beat. Let's treat it as a long dog walk and let's try and find some fish. We need to find some rising fish to kick this season off. And then just as quickly as it changed earlier in the day, the weather actually changed back. The March browns didn't come back, but the large darks did. And we found one pool just below the bridge where all of a sudden there maybe were 3 or 4 fish rising that we could go and target.
Incredibly skinny water in the tail out of this. It's not much more than about a foot to 18 inches deep over there. I've lengthened my taper leader out. I've stuck about 3.5 foot of 6X on the end, so we're probably about 17 foot in total. Nice long leader, nice soft leader. It's probably a bit more sort of familiar territory for me, that. And I've got a fish that's, as I say, risen 2 or 3 times at the back here, square of me in this tail out. Also changed the fly. I've gone for, it's one of Paul Proctor's full of mill patterns, the Pearly Butt Emerger. I can't remember the exact name, but nice pattern. Will do as a large dark olive. That's a pretty good cast first drop actually. It'll do as a large dark olive emerger, that's for sure. Oh, I've just moved one. Just as I was picking that up, I've just moved one here. Real sort of boil and a flash. Probably knackered that. That is typical. Oh no, he didn't take it. He looked, he didn't take that. I was a little bit hasty on the strike. He had a good look, never had the fly. Oh, okay. So while I was waiting for one of those guys to rise, a fish has just risen directly upstream of me. So I'll switch angles for a few minutes. Let's see if we can cover him. Oh, not while I've got the line wrapped around the rod, but we won't. Let's start that one again, Andy. Straight upstream of me. Got him. There we go. It's taken us a little while. We get there in the end. We get there in the end. IB's giving it the whoops. Certainly not one of the us monsters, but first fish of the day. It's taken a while. We get there in the end, and while it isn't one of the us monsters that maybe we might hope for, it is the fish I was hoping to get from this trip, because it is the first dry fly brown trout of my season. Thank you very much. Whew, hard work, really hard work. That hatch sort of ebbs and flows. The wind is having an impact, definitely. You can see it blowing bugs away. The cloud has had an impact. There aren't as many bugs coming down. It's been tough. It's been really tough. Even then, I feel like I'm getting drawn around this pool a little bit, but they are clearly there. I wonder if it's maybe time if IB showed me how it's done. Right, so we've had a little bit of break. We've had a sandwich. The dog is increasingly driving us both mental at the moment, but she's all right. And I was about to say, we've sat watching rising fish on this pool. I've sat watching rising fish on this pool. IB has not seen a single one of them, so she's decided to forfeit her shot in this pool just because every time one of these fish rises, she doesn't see it. So I'm going to sneak across. I've got at least 2, if not 3 areas where I've seen fish rise recently. Yeah, there's another one just risen on the far side, so there are still bugs coming down here. The sun has just started to peek out a little bit. It's a little bit brighter, it's a little bit warmer, and even though that wind is, well, it's rubbish to be honest, it's horrible upstream wind, we have still got a few bugs hatching, so confident here that we might just get a couple of shots before the day's over at rising fish. That's not quite right, but it's not a million miles off. A little bit further over than that. It's a good starting cast. Typically, having just sat and watched this, and the wind has been relatively gentle for the last 15 minutes. As soon as I walk out into the river, it is howling again. And that's landed 35 to 40 feet away from where it's supposed to. Let's try that again. Yeah, that's good. That should cover that fish, actually. I'd say that's pretty much spot on. Obviously stuck with the same fly, it's worked, so not going to change that just yet. I've also stuck with that leader setup with the longer tippet section. Let's just see. I don't think these ones that are close to me are big fish. I think that they're... Oh, I've just freaking missed it. I was looking at where my line had gone in relation to this rock, and a fish has just taken that fly. Yeah, they're not big fish, these. These are those little flappers, a bit like the first one. And of all the fish that I've been watching rise, there is one towards the far bank that has been consistently in the same spot. Not that one, but we can cover that fish from here anyway. That's pretty good. Maybe a touch on him, not quite enough, not far enough above him maybe, but it's not a bad cast. Oh, yay. Okay, that's a miss. Just had a quick conversation with IB. We don't think that was the fish that I saw rise. A little bit further downstream than where we saw the rising fish, so all is not lost. It's a little bit deeper than it looks, this. Lovely clear water. Not particularly cold either relative to Derbyshire water temperatures. I'd say this is a little bit warmer. That's got a chance. Got him. That's got a chance. Oh, that's got a chance. That had a chance. You can tell IB's distracted by the dog at the moment because she hasn't given me no grief at all for those last 2 fish so far. Whereas ordinarily, I think I'd be copping it by now. Still don't think that's the original target fish, but whether or not that target fish will still feed, having had that guy jumping around over his noggin, is a different matter. There we go. Oh, that one's come out as well. Wow. These guys are pretty excitable today. Try and get this guy on the reel. That's a bit more like it. Found a few risers, you can catch them. I don't think it's huge, so we've got to take these at this time of year. Catching fish on dry flies, just into the second week of March. You've got to love this place for this. We've got nothing like this back home. It wasn't. I was really wrapped up in the tippet at that point. Just could have done with leaning a little bit further with the net and I'd have got that one in.
Right, so Andy lost a fish and I thought it's my turn now. I did see a fish rise. We were basically decided to move back to where we started to see if there's any fish rising there. But I thought, you know what, I will... Well, on the walk there, I just saw another fish rise that moved quite a bit of water. I don't think it was a big fish. I think it's just very, very shallow here. I will walk very slowly and see if I can tempt a brownie or two, and if I can see any fish rising. This is very exciting because this would be my first dry fly fish and my first trout of the season. When we were seeing fish rise first, when we got here, I borderline cried. Because it is really exciting. Trout season finally started. I feel like we wait a year of winter. Oh, I just saw a fish rise further across the river by the bridge. Yeah, I feel like the winter and the grayling season goes on for so long that when finally trout season starts, and obviously in where we are in Derbyshire, trout season hasn't started yet, so the fact that we're able to open up our season in Wales is so exciting. Ooh.
So within a 60-minute period there, we rose almost all the fish we covered. There are a couple there maybe that we didn't move. It was quite hard to keep track of them. Sometimes it felt like some of those fish were moving around. They weren't big fish. I don't think any of them were particularly big fish. But it was nice to see something rising in that pool. It did get to the point though where it felt like we'd fished it out. We moved away. We thought, wow, we've got that slightly brighter weather conditions. We might go and try and find some more risers. It didn't work out at all. We didn't find any more rising fish. And when we walked back down to that bridge pool, there were some other people fishing in it, so that really was it for us. We pretty much canned the day at that. We had a little bit of a walk up and down the beach just because it's somewhere I hadn't been before. But at that was pretty much our day done, and that was as difficult a first day down on the Usk as I can ever remember having. I wasn't too perturbed though, because I had actually already booked the tickets for the beat for the next day while I was there. It's a beat I knew a little bit better actually. I was determined not to fish any beats that I'd fished before, but we were sort of kettled into having to book specific beats because we had the dog. I knew this beat better. I knew there was a good chance I was finding some rising fish, so I was really, really confident for day two. So we arrived on day two to very, very similar overhead conditions. If anything, slightly warmer, maybe nice bright sky, relatively low winds to start with. It felt great, and at 11 o'clock when we got to the river, once again, fish rising, and actually we could see some bigger fish in amongst these as well. There were probably more March browns coming off this beat than there was on the previous day, and it certainly felt like the fish had responded to it. We found fish immediately, and I climbed into the river for the first cast of the day feeling really, really confident that as long as I didn't make a mess of it, we were going to put a fish in the net early on day two. I could not wait. The problem is that relied on me not making any mistakes, and actually, as you're about to see from this footage, I made a pretty big mistake pretty early in the day here.
Okay, so just like yesterday, in the process of trying to walk up to a spot where I thought we'd find some rising fish, we've already found some rising fish. I was actually getting in to cover another one slightly upstream of this, and a fish has risen downstream of me. It's an awkward one because I've got no back cast. He's a little bit further across than that. It's going to have to be a roll cast. He's just into the shade. That should do it. In fact, if anything, it might be a bit too far across. Ooh, I've got a feeling it sank. I've got a feeling he might have taken that. I don't know why that fly sank after 3 casts. Should have struck. Ah, the fly's tangled.
Yeah, very, very frustrated. If I'd have been concentrating properly there, I'd have seen what had happened, and I think could have put that fish in the net. So I'm just going to show this footage again. There's a bit of a kink in my tapered leader quite near the end of the fly line that I think is probably from where it was left rigged up in the rod overnight because the nights were cold. I make this cast, it turns over okay. I can't see the fly on the water. I've got a load of glare. I'd been struggling to see it anyway. I had a feeling it sank, but I really wasn't sure what was going on. You can see that kink there, and as it comes down towards the fish that's rising, I'm sort of umming and ahhing. I see this fish boil, but I don't see it break the surface. Had I have had my wits about me, I'd have actually seen that little kink of the leader on the water straighten, which would have told me that actually, yes, that fish had definitely taken my fly. If I'd have been focusing on that section of the leader, I'd have seen it straighten, I could have struck, and I'm pretty sure I'd have hit that fish, because looking back, it certainly ate that fly. So a bit of a mess up early, but actually it made me feel just as confident that we were going to still, put a couple of these fish in the net, or at least rise a couple more fish. And it didn't take long. It was probably only 15 minutes on. We sat and had a bit of a watch, and all of a sudden another fish started rising in a pool where I've always thought I should find a big fish. We could see this fish from the bank. It looked really, really big. I mean, I'm talking serious fish here, and it was confident on these March browns. I offered it to IB. She said no, she didn't want to do it. She was going to stay on the bank and look after the dog. So again, I climbed back in the river to cover the second rising fish of the day.
Right, so we've just climbed out. Slows fishing the tail out, beat me up. It went very quiet actually. I just sort of lost the bugs. All of a sudden there weren't any bugs coming down the river. It went quiet, didn't see the fish again. And we're about to walk on, and fish has risen right in front of where I was going to climb out. So while I'm here and in the water, we're going to make a little shot at this guy. There's not much space to play with here. Little roll cast again. That should do. That should do. Here he is, here he is, here he is. Eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. Oh my goodness. Wow. He followed that for 10 feet. It's a good fish that is, isn't it? Okay, we'll just give him 30 seconds to forget all about that, and we'll make that same cast again. I see it, righty. So he's clearly forgotten about it because he's just risen again. So we'll make that cast again. That should do it. Where are you?
Didn't even have a look.
Did he go over him?
Yeah.
Could you see it? Yeah. Interesting. Is that him? Is that a different fish?
Yeah. That's his little circle.
Let's try that. Oh, I've pinged him. It's broke. I didn't even strike that hard. That was a big fish.
Yeah, I know. I've had flashbacks about this fish. It was huge. The previous day I'd fished 6X. We'd been fishing for slightly smaller fish, and we'd fish on pretty flat water. And I needed to drop down a little bit, so there was a join in between the end of my 5X tapered leader and the 6X fly line. There was a blood knot there. It snapped like cotton. I honestly don't know what happened. I don't know if it maybe got damaged at some point. I'm really not sure, because that was the same knot actually that I'd played 2 fish on the previous day, although much smaller fish. I never even felt the contact. It snapped that easy. I really don't know what went wrong. I've been kicking myself ever since about this, because that was such a good fish, and it was such a confident fish. It was a complete gimme, and I, for just rushing, for not testing and not properly like I should have done, completely messed it up. What I hadn't seen while I was down there actually was the second fish. I didn't realise there were 2 fish there. I thought there was 1. And if we just play this footage again, you'll sort of see that my fly comes into view through the branches that IB's recording this through. But there is another fish a little bit lower down, and when I strike, actually that fish spooks as well. Now, I know you can't see my fish. I know you can see the fish below it. But IB said that actually she thought the fish that took my fly was significantly bigger than the one that spooked. And the one that spooked looks absolutely enormous. So Yeah, one of those moments, really, really regret it, really frustrated at myself. You live and learn, don't you? But crikey, I mean, I've literally had dreams about this fish again. And yeah, every time I've dreamt it, I've snapped it off again. Bugger. What made it even more frustrating was that actually not long after that, the weather changed again in exactly the same way it had the day before. At about midday, the cloud dropped, it got colder, the wind got up, and that hatch just completely died. And for 2 hours, we barely saw a rising fish. We went looking for them. We covered a lot of ground. I think we did like 18,000 steps that day. We were determined to find rising fish, but we just couldn't. The conditions changed. So once again, I ended up picking up the nymphing rod. Reluctantly, I will say, I fished for maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, basically one and a bit riffles, very, very quickly. Picked up a fish, and once again, as soon as I'd done that, I was like, no, that'll do. I have not come down here to nymph. I'd rather go and look for these fish and try and find them.
It's taken a little bit of digging out here, but we found one in the end. Not a huge one, it's come out of the water a couple of times. No great place to net this fish, everywhere is pretty fast. Let's try and get around him slightly. Okay, there's one in the net. £3 of the future, that one. Welcome fish. That one didn't break me off.
The problem was in the next 2.5 hours, we literally saw one fish rise for the rest of the day. So that was it. That was literally our trip. IB fished for maybe 25 minutes over 2 days. It felt like we got catfished both days. We arrived to rivers where there was a good hatch and stuff was happening, and just as it felt like we were getting to the good stuff, that weather dropped in and just killed it. It was really, really frustrating because it's just, I know the potential of that place. We've had some great times down there. The thing is, that can happen in March. The hatches can be short. It can all be over pretty quickly. We've had some really good weather here for the last month, and I've sort of had to remind myself sometimes that actually it is still March. It is still very, very early. The weather's been great. We've been seeing rising fish both in Derbyshire and in Wales, but it can switch in on a dime. It can change really, really quickly, and unfortunately, on both days fishing we had down there, it changed on us really fast. In hindsight, maybe we should have done a bit more nymphing, because as I say, in about an hour's worth of fishing, I landed two and bumped one, so maybe there was a few more opportunities there. But I just didn't want to. I wanted to go down there for the dry fly fishing. We've just spent the entire winter nymphing, so I wanted to do some dry fly fishing. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for us this time, but there's always going to be another chance. So I got back home off that trip and thought, well, actually, I would still like to do a little bit of grayling fishing before the end of the season up here. As I say, very strange time of year that it is now the trout season in Wales, but wasn't currently the trout season up here. I don't know who made the rules up about these seasons here in the UK, but it makes no sense at all, and I really, really wish they'd standardise the whole thing, because it'd make it a lot easier for everyone. There are so many misunderstandings about this. I completely understand why. It's too complicated, it's too convoluted. Let's just standardise the seasons for England, Scotland and Wales, so everyone knows what it is they're dealing with. I picked up a new ticket here locally. The ticket's called Fenton and District. It's one you can actually join online. Some lovely pieces of water, a mixture of coarse fishing and fly fishing, a little bit of stuff for everyone. It's relatively local to us, so I thought, you know what, that seems great value for money. I know one of the rivers relatively well, so I thought it'd be lovely to go down and catch some grayling before the end of the season, particularly as we've got another rod on review. I really, really wanted to try that on the grayling. So we got down there. I got down to the river way too late on this particular day. Once again, the weather had been lovely in the morning. I turned up, and within 20 minutes of getting out of the car, I could feel it changing. But the situation was different this time, because I was there to fish the duo and fly line rather than try and catch them specifically on dries. It took me a while to find the river. It took me a little while to find the parking actually, but once I was down there, I walked down to the river, and the first pool looked absolutely gorgeous.
Well, it's not taken me long to find a pool that I like the look of, unfortunately. The time it's taken me to get myself sorted out and rig up. There's a hacking downstream wind got up, absolutely howling down this little valley. So we'll sort of have to deal with it as best we can. Found a lovely pool though to start with. Nice gravelly run, solid bubble line. This looks the absolute business. I can see it's gravel at the bottom of it. Looks really fishy, so I'm going to start right at the back here. And I'm going to work myself right the way up this one. Oh, that wind, man. That wind, wow. Yeah, that's going to be good fun for the day. Okay, so about 2 or 3 minutes in here, and I've already made the first change of the day. And having taken one extra step into this pool, I've realised it's a lot deeper than I thought it was. So where that was set at about 18 inches, that was never getting down. So I've probably stuck another foot or so on there. Just make sure those flies are a little bit closer to the riverbed. Water temperature's still cold. This is quite a sheltered little valley, this one. Or quite a shaded little valley, I should say, sorry. So the water's still cold. It's definitely not warmed up yet. Oh dear me, that is windy. It's even making mending difficult. Hopefully as I go upstream I can get out of this a little bit, because it's going to make fishing very, very hard. As difficult as it is. That is ripping down the valley. Oh, that's a fish right at the end of the drift, just on the swing. I was just about to pick that up and I just saw it sort of dip a little bit and thought, oh, I probably ought to lift into that just in case. And yeah, that's a grayling right at the back of the pool. Nice, 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 nice. Yeah, first one of the day. Woohoo! Pink dub grub on the swing. Lovely bright Staffordshire grayling.
You can't beat going down to a new piece of water and catching a fish very, very early, just to make yourself feel like you know what you're doing a little bit. As I say, I know this river relatively well, but not this area of the river. So it's really nice to catch one early. But as I said earlier, that weather was already changing. I could feel it changing. And actually it got so cold that I ended up running back to the car to get a coat. I was absolutely freezing. There was a point where I was actually struggling to make a fly change. So it got very, very cold, very windy, very difficult. And other than one out of season trout that put a bit of a bend in the rod but wasn't what I was looking for, it wasn't going very well. I did get very lucky though. I just had a camera battery die and I turned around to have a look at it, and there was stood one of the absolute venue experts, a guy I know. So I spent the next hour hanging about with him. We walked all the way up the beat, right to the top, to a lovely little whirlpool where he left me to it, and I managed to find a few more fish.
Righty, so as I was fishing that last pull through, one of the batteries on the camera's died, and I turned round to climb out to fix it, and stood there was the head bailiff in his part of the river. So I've just spent an hour hanging out with him actually. I mean, geez, if you're fishing a new piece of water for the first time and you want to get to know it, what better opportunity than to walk the entire beat with someone who's got loads of experience on it. And Andy's been fishing this place for 20 years, so I wasn't going to miss that chance just to spend a little bit of time with someone who really knows it, to sort of get their opinion on things and get that little bit of knowledge. Very, very grateful for that, that's for sure. Still got that baby pink on for the moment. Keep that on for the time being. Might be a little bit overweight maybe, but I think we'll be okay. Let's see what there is up the edge of this bubble line here. Is that a fish? Yes, it is a fish. Yes, it is a fish. Is it a grayling fish? Yes, it is. Oh, nice one as well. Good, 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 good. Yeah. There we go. That is a nice handful of Staffordshire grayling. Oh, for sake, Andy. So yeah, I am fully aware that as I was trying to b-roll the release of that fish, I forgot to press record on the phone. So hopefully we can find another one in there. And that is literally next cast. Similar sized fish as well, actually. Let's try and get him on the reel. Oh no, it's a bigger fish actually. It is bigger than the last one. That's where wearing the pads come in handy. Kneel down without knackering my waders. Come on, you. There we go, that's a lovely fish. Yeah, similar size to the previous fish and just as flappy. Come on, bud. There we go.
Really nice to catch a couple out there, a little boost of confidence. It meant that I could fish the rest of the river down from there, feeling like I knew where I was pointing. It sort of walked the whole beat with me. I felt much better about things. The problem was that it was starting to get a little bit dark. It's a very steep valley, and I sort of knew I was against it time-wise. I did catch a few more fish here and there. Some of them were just tiny little swinger inners. I was still very happy to see them. Some of them were bigger fish that needed the net. There were no more out-of-season trout. It was all grayling, and it sort of felt like mission accomplished just as the light was starting to go. It got darker, I got colder, and I decided that for my grayling season, that was going to be it. I was happy to finish on a high, caught a few fish out of a new piece of water, feel like I know it better, and certainly feel like going into the trout fishing season that we are in right now, I'm going to get to know this river a lot better. I'm excited to spend a bit more time down there. In truth, I'm excited for the trout season full stop. You can't help but be filled with optimism. We've had lovely weather, we've had hatches, we've seen rising fish, both here in Derbyshire and down in South Wales, where I might creep back down again. I might have unfinished business down there. Hopefully it's all about to happen for you guys too. So if you're just getting started in your trout season, if you're getting yourself kitted out, if you're changing your fly boxes over, good luck to you for the rest of the season. We hope you have a great one. We hope it's a great one here. Hope the weather holds and those big fish are rising for you early in the season, because now is the time to catch those. On that note, I'm going to go and change my fly boxes over. We've got to take those grayling flies out, fill those boxes full of trout flies ready for the season. And IB and I are going to see you guys again soon for some more trout fishing, some more dry fly fishing, and some more stuff very, very soon. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.